Hello, I'm Nakia Bashiruddin and this is Nightline, your top stories. Government to look into operations of daycare centres for working parents. We'll begin with our headlining story. The government will look into operations of daycare centres now that the economic sectors are allowed to carry on business at full capacity. NSC's Senior Minister for Security Cluster, Datuk Sri Ismail Sabri Yaakob, said the authorities were aware of the need for daycare centres and nurseries to be reopened as affected parents could return to work.
Kita pun faham ada ibu bapa yang bekerja, tak ada siapa yang menjaga anak mereka di rumah. Dan perkara inilah yang akan kita bincangkan besok untuk kita keluarkan S.O.P yang lebih detail. Saya dah katakan semua kementerian terlibat di dalam mencadangkan S.O.P di bawah kementerian mereka, dan besok kita akan bincangkan secara detail termasuk isu tadika dan sebagainya. Ya, kita tunggulah selepas kita luluskan nanti.
He said this during the NSC's daily media conference in Putrajaya on Wednesday. Under the fourth phase of the Movement Control Order, economic sectors operating at half capacity during phases 1 to 3 will be allowed to carry on business at full capacity. Meanwhile, Datuk Sri Ismail said 2 people are now allowed to do shopping for daily necessities under the fourth phase of the MCO, which kicked off on Wednesday. He said they can do so as long as the second person is a family member living in the same house.
Oleh itu, untuk memberikan sedikit kelonggaran dan kemudahan, jadi kita benarkan 2 orang untuk 1 kereta. Ya, sebab kalau daripada rumah yang sama, kalau kita fikirkan dari segi soal social distancing, di dalam rumah pun mereka tetap bersama. Lebih-lebih lagi, jikalau rumah mereka tidak ada kes yang melibatkan COVID positif, maknanya semua dalam rumah juga selamat. Jadi sebab itu kita benarkan.
Previously, only the household head was allowed to go out to buy food and daily essential items. He said allowing 2 people from a family to go out and run errands for food, medicine and other daily needs have been gazetted. The updated Prevention and Control of Infectious Diseases Declaration of Infected Local Areas Order 2020, which was signed by the Health Minister, stated that the MCO is further extended from April 29th until May 12th. On this matter, the Senior Minister said all the MCOs from the first, which started on March 18th, and to the current Phase 4 were gazetted. On another matter, the Senior Minister clarified that Deputy Health Minister Dr. Noor Azmi Ghazali and Perak Executive Councillor Razman Zakaria were only fined for disobeying the MCO, as they had merely breached Standard Operating Procedures (SOPs). Although noting that no one is above the law, he said elected representatives are allowed to move about during the MCO period to hand out aid to their constituents.
Ini jelas apabila 2 daripada VVIP kita dihukum oleh mahkamah. Kenapa berbeza? Sebab undang-undangnya berbeza. Charge ataupun tuduhan adalah berbeza. Sebagai contoh, 2 VVIP kita, Exco Perak dan juga Timbalan Menteri Kesihatan, mereka hanya melanggar dari segi S.O.P di bawah peraturan. S.O.P. Bukan melanggar perintah PKP.
Datuk Sri Ismail said the 2 are allowed to be on the move to channel aid and look into people's welfare because they are elected representatives. He also stressed that the law is fair and those who violate it would have action taken against them regardless of their position. The court had slapped Dr. Noor Azmi and Razman with a maximum fine of 1,000 ringgit. The Health Ministry on Wednesday recommended the reopening of the social and educational sectors by between 2 and 4 weeks after the economic sector has been fully reopened. Health Director General Dr. Nur Hisham Abdullah said that the ministry will only discuss with the National Security Council (NSC) on Thursday on whether or not to reopen daycare centres, as several industries have already been allowed to operate fully on Wednesday.
As far as school is concerned, as we, Ministry of Health, we suggested and proposed that we start the economic sector first. The social and education sector will be delayed a bit. Let us do for the allow the economic sector to start, and then hopefully we'll monitor the situation within 2 weeks or even 4 weeks, and then before we can actually decide or propose the social and education sector to reopen.
He said no matter which sectors are involved, the most important part is that they are all complying with the Health Ministry's guidelines on COVID-19. Schools have remained closed since the midterm holiday in March. Earlier this month, Prime Minister Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin said he had directed the Education Ministry to implement home-based learning during the partial lockdown. At the same media conference, Dr. Nur Hisham revealed that 94 new COVID-19 cases were reported on Wednesday, with 72 of them those imported from Malaysians returning from Indonesia. This makes new local cases at a new low record of just 22 cases, the lowest since the movement control order was implemented. He said the total number of COVID-19 cases now stands at 5,945, with no new deaths reported on Wednesday.
Ingin dimaklumkan bahawa daripada 94 kes baru yang dilaporkan hari ini, 72 kes adalah kes import melibatkan warga negara dan pelajar Malaysia yang pulang daripada Indonesia. Ini bermakna kes penularan tempatan adalah bersamaan dengan 22 kes sahaja.
The Health DG also said that 55 more patients have been discharged on Wednesday. This means 4,087 patients have recovered from COVID-19 in Malaysia since the outbreak began. At present, there are only 1,758 active cases being treated in the country's health facilities. The Malaysian bar has urged the government to enact a COVID-19 law, saying that it must be in place before the country emerges from the movement control order. Its president, Salim Bashir, in a statement said urgent legislation is needed now to protect individuals, businesses and companies from the consequences of being unable to perform or fulfill their contractual obligations as a result of COVID-19. It urged the government to introduce the law as soon as possible and to extend the sitting of the Dewan Rakyat to cater for this. He said the government should look at Singapore, which introduced such legislation in the second week of April. Amongst other things, the law ensured that booking deposits could not be forfeited for weddings or businesses' functions that had to be postponed, and termination of business premise leases due to non-payment of rent. While the United Kingdom introduced the Coronavirus Act 2020 in March to allow for regulations to be made regarding employment contracts to protect employers and employees. Currently, Parliament is scheduled for a one-day sitting of the Dewan Rakyat on May 18th, where only the speech of the Yang di-Pertuan Agong and certain legislations will be tabled for first reading. Starting on Wednesday, the Road Transport Department, RTD, has opened its counters specifically for matters involving commercial vehicles. Kuala Lumpur RTD Deputy Director Abdul Tolib Ahmad said, however, the counter services will only be opened from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. daily.
Jadi selepas 3 fasa, memasuki fasa yang keempat ini, maka bermula pada 29 hari bulan ini, maka kita diarahkan oleh pihak Ibu Pejabat melalui surat yang ditandatangani oleh Yang Berbahagia Datuk Seri KP untuk memulakan perkhidmatan kaunter kepada orang awam. Jadi arahan untuk kita membuka kaunter ini berkisar kepada pembaharuan kenderaan lesen kenderaan motor, kenderaan perdagangan.
He said those who go to the RTD offices must follow strict guidelines to prevent the spread of COVID-19, such as wearing face masks and undergoing temperature checks. Abdul Talib also confirmed that drivers of private vehicles, taxis or e-hailing would be exempted from renewing their motor vehicle licenses and driving licenses during the movement control order period. RHB Banking Group has approved over 500 million ringgit in Special Relief Facility SRF applications to more than 700 small and medium enterprises SMEs. This fund under the Prihatin package is to help alleviate the short-term cash flow difficulties faced by them arising from the COVID-19 pandemic.
RHB has approved more than 700 SRF applications from SMEs out of the more than 1,500 applications received so far, with total facility amount in excess of 500 million ringgit. The highest number of approvals granted are from the wholesale and retail trade sectors at 31%, with total facility amount at 155 million ringgit. And this is followed by 16% from the manufacturing sector at 79 million ringgit.
Datuk Khairul Saleh said almost half of the SRF approvals are those with new financing relationships with RHB. The SRF is part of Bank Negara Malaysia's funds for SMEs, with an allocation of 5 billion ringgit made available under the RHB SME Financial Relief Assistance Program. We're taking a short break. When we return, police inspector claims trial in probe over abuse of Mongolian women. Don't go away. Welcome back, still on Nightline. In Selangor, a police inspector was charged at the Klang Sessions Court on Wednesday with 2 counts of human trafficking involving 2 Mongolian women for sexual exploitation. Hazrul Hizam Ghazali, however, pleaded not guilty to the charge after it was read out before Justice Tasnim Abu Bakar. On the first count, Hazrul Hizam, who is with the Petaling Jaya District Police Headquarters, was charged with abusing his power by trafficking a 20-year-old Mongolian woman for sexual exploitation at a hotel room in Petaling Jaya between 10:30 p.m. last April 10th and 8:30 p.m. the following day. On the second count, he was charged with committing a similar offence on another Mongolian woman aged 36 in another room at the same hotel and at the same time and date. The charges were made under the Anti-Trafficking in Persons and Anti-Smuggling of Migrants Act of 2007, which provides an imprisonment of not less than 3 years but not exceeding 20 years, and shall also be liable to a fine if found guilty. The court set bail at 20,000 ringgit in one surety for both charges, and also ordered Hazrul Hizam to surrender his passport to the court and report himself at the nearest police station every month pending disposal of the case. The judge set June 17th for mention. In Kelantan, a 52-year-old lorry driver pleaded not guilty on Wednesday to 23 counts of incest, which allegedly took place in Rantau Panjang between December 2018 and April this year. At the Pasir Mas Magistrates Court, the accused was slapped with the charges before Court Registrar Rozaidi Yaakob. The man faces a jail term of not more than 30 years and up to 10 strokes of the rotan for each count upon conviction. He was alleged to have raped his 16-year-old daughter at their house. The court denied bail and fixed June 21st for a mention of the case. In Selangor, 154 people were arrested during a raid at an illegal settlement in Kampung Ulu Rening, Batangkali on Tuesday and were charged for alleged violation of the Movement Control Order MCO. Selangor CID Chief Datuk Fadzil Ahmad in a statement said they were charged at the Kuala Kubu Baru Court on Wednesday morning. In the 5 p.m. raid on Tuesday, 238 people nabbed were 76 men, 77 women and 85 children, including babies. They were charged under the Prevention and Control of Infectious Diseases, Measures Within Infected Local Areas Regulations 2020. Initial probes revealed that they were living in plastic tents in a newly opened area of the forest and claimed to be members of the Dewan Perkasa Ekonomi Islam Nusantara. Police believe that those detained have violated the MCO and they came from various places in the country. The U.S. hits 1 million coronavirus cases, 1/3 of all the world's cases. The details coming up next. Now on to the foreign front. The United States has reported more than 1 million COVID-19 infections only because of its testing. This is according to U.S. President Donald Trump, who stressed that cases in the country topped 1 million because more patients have been tested than other nations, hailing the effort as being much better than any other country in the world.
Well, it will go down to zero ultimately. And you have to understand, when it comes to cases, we do much more testing than anybody else. So we could go to some of these other countries, you know, as an example, China. If you test, you're going to show many more cases.
The comments made by Trump came amid warnings from state public health officials that shortages of trained workers and materials have limited testing capacity. The U.S. has tested 5.7 million people for the virus in total. It has also recorded 59,266 deaths up until late Tuesday, accounting for almost 1/3 of the world's death toll. Despite the figures, many American states have been pushing to relax lockdown restrictions. The number of positive COVID-19 cases in Indonesia has risen to 9,771, with 260 new cases reported within the past 24 hours. The Indonesian government spokesman on COVID-19, Ahmad Yuryanto, said at present there were still 21,653 patients under surveillance for COVID-19. It also recorded 11 new deaths, taking the total number of fatalities to 784. Jakarta province has reported the most number of deaths at 370, followed by East Java at 90 and West Java at 79. It was reported that more than 67,700 people have been tested so far. The number of COVID-19 cases in Singapore, meanwhile, crossed the 15,000 mark, with 690 new infections reported as of noon on Wednesday. The vast majority of the new cases are work permit holders residing in foreign worker dormitories, while 6 cases are Singaporeans or permanent residents. The new cases took the national total to 15,641. Iran reopened for business despite its persistent COVID-19 outbreak, as there was no end in sight to the crisis as 80 new deaths were announced. During a televised cabinet meeting, Iranian President Hassan Rouhani said the country will have to follow all the medical instructions, but work and production are as essential as these precautions. The government has allowed many businesses to reopen since April 11th, after shutting most down in mid-March to stem the spread of the disease. The Health Ministry announced that 80 new deaths from the virus had taken the country's overall toll to 5,957. So far, 93,657 people in the country have contracted the illness since mid-February. Russia extended an entry ban for foreigners to slow the spread of the COVID-19 as the country registered a steep rise in the number of new infections. The decree barring foreigners from entering the country, which was introduced in mid-March and set to expire Thursday, was extended until Russia has the virus under control. Russia confirmed 5,841 new coronavirus infections on Wednesday, bringing the country's official number of cases to 99,399. In total, 972 people have been killed by the virus in the country. We're back with sports. The Spanish La Liga could be back to action to determine the winner of the 2019 to 2020 season after the league was suspended due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The league will be concluded in a bid to ascertain the winner of the league, the teams that qualified for the Champions League, and also the relegating team for this season. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez made it known in his announcement that the activities will return to normal on May 4th and the professional athletes can resume individual training from that date. The Champions League and other major leagues are expected to resume action once some of the top clubs start to resume football actions. Barcelona tops the La Liga with 2 points, with Real Madrid in the second position, followed by Sevilla, Real Sociedad and Getafe. Atletico Madrid is placed on the 6th position, and Diego Simeone's men are battling for a Champions League slot for the next season. Now let's take a look at the highlights of Malaysia's main newspapers for Thursday, April 30th. The New Straits Times puts a report on the easing of movement restrictions as 2 people are allowed to travel in one vehicle now on its front page. While Berita Harian highlights the Malaysia's economic recovery as top priority of Phase 4 of the MCO. And Harian Metro focuses on the action taken against 154 arrested during a raid at an illegal settlement in Kampung Ulu Rening, Batangkali for flouting the MCO. With a special report on corporate earnings forecasts hit their gloomiest level since 2009, takes the center stage of the Malaysian Reserve. Do get your copies today or subscribe to the e-paper. And family, friends and fans gather outside the burial ground of acclaimed Indian actor Irfan Khan, whose international movie career included hits such as Slumdog Millionaire, Life of Pi and The Amazing Spider-Man. The 53-year-old Bollywood star, who was diagnosed with a neuroendocrine tumor in 2018, was admitted to a Mumbai hospital earlier this week with a colon infection. Let's take a look at the visuals as we wrap up Nightline this time around. With that, I'm Nakia Bashiruddin. Thank you for tuning in and stay safe, Malaysia.